Get on down to the Buckhorn Tavern, voted the best steakhouse in Dayton in 2009, 8800 Meeker Road, buckhorntavern.biz on the web. I'm out here with Karl Williamson, and we are on the corner of Clay and Cass here in the Oregon District. Karl, you're the owner of Urban
Crag Climbing Center,
where people can come to climb here in the Oregon District.
Yes, sir.
And but we're not here to talk about climbing necessarily, but maybe its effects to your climbing business. You said you had a concern about panhandling in the city and how it's affecting quality of life and businesses. So tell your story.
Well, it kind of started first week of September last year. I had a family come in from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they spent the day here. You know, they bought a set of shoes for the little girls, and they spent quite a bit of money, a little over $350. They ordered out pizza from the pizza factory, and they had lunch here. They spent the day. Pretty much everything that downtown Dayton wants. You know, people coming in and spending the day down here and spending their money. And on their way out, they were confronted by I shouldn't say confronted, but they were solicited by a panhandler.
Mm-hmm.
The father was taken back. He stepped in between the panhandler and his children. I wouldn't say the guy was aggressive, but he was kind of startling. I came out to shoo him away, so to speak, and he pulled out a City of Dayton panhandler's permit. So there was literally nothing I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen that family back since. You know, I'm a resident down here as well. I've just kind of grown accustomed to the panhandling. And that really kind of got to me. I'm thinking, I can't be the only business downtown that's having to tolerate this. It's simply not good for business. You see the city now just putting out little fires with the panhandlers or the drunks that roam around downtown. They just had that situation over CBS down on the square.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they round them up for city folk and for urban nights, just to get them out of downtown. I think there's just a better way to deal with this than just putting out small fires. I wrote a letter to the mayor, explaining to him what happened and my concerns about the city. He wrote back saying that they can't arrest everybody, and I understand that. So I did a little research on the internet and found out how other communities are dealing with this. San Francisco, there's a district in San Francisco where it initially started. They took old parking meters and put signage on them saying, "Don't give to the panhandlers. If you want to help, put it in this meter and we'll distribute it to outreach programs and shelters around the neighborhood." And the panhandling fell off by 80%. I think this is an idea that could work in downtown. I think it's panhandling in the city of Dayton is really kind of an elephant in the living room. No one wants to deal with it. No one wants to confront it.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of tolerate it and hope it'll go away. Well, it's not going away. If anything, it's getting worse. I mean, you see them on all the exit and on-ramps.
Yeah, I'm starting to see, you know, I've always tried to keep a compassionate mind towards, you know,
right,
those less fortunate. But I'm starting to see an element of what appear to be able-bodied, in their 20s,
absolutely,
hoodied young men with $100 sneakers.
Absolutely.
With signs saying, "I've got a family to feed."
Right.
And
yeah, when, you know,
I can tell the difference between someone who's physically incapacitated, and you can tell that person is not able to work,
right,
and a guy in a hoodie.
Right. I've gone through the same kind of ethical quandary.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's gotten to the point now where I just, before they even ask or open their mouth, they're approaching me, I'll just say no immediately and just pass me by. Actually, most of the regulars, panhandlers downtown know me and they won't even approach me anymore.
Well, this brings up a subject that's pretty interesting. I mean, like you said, it's an elephant in the room. I've lived in large urban areas. I've lived in deep eastern Appalachia, Kentucky. I've lived in the suburbs. I've lived with people from all over the world. And the panhandler thing, obviously, if you've been to like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, we have nothing on a scale, you know, and urbanites tend to be like, it ain't nothing but, you know, some old drunk, just tell them to get out, you know. I've seen guys like, get out of here,
right?
And they run, you know, they scurry, and they're usually pathetic individuals. But how do you get that sensibility towards someone who comes from somewhere where you know, it's not as urbane, or, you know, not nearly as urban environment, much more suburban, maybe picket fence type environment, who's not exposed to that very often. How do we get through? Where do we go with that? I mean, how to
get through them to what? Not give to the panhandlers?
Not give to the panhandlers, but the fear of the panhandling element, which I think it's, you know.
That's a big question. I don't know about. I guess the way I approach it now is, really, I ask myself, is this person in need of help, or are they just running a con and want money to go buy a can of beer?
Yeah.
So if they're asking for money, especially for food, and they give you their spiel, I'll ask them, well, I'll tell them, I'm not going to give you money, but I'll go buy you a sandwich. At that point, the ball is in their court, and they have to respond. They'll either accept that, but 99 times out of 100 they won't. They'll just walk away, and it kind of diffuses the situation. I know it makes people feel very uncomfortable, just like my customers that came in. I mean, they haven't come back, and if we're really talking about revitalizing our city center, I think that this would be a good start to it. Just addressing the situation instead of ignoring it.
What do you think the solution ought to be ultimately? You had mentioned that, you know, making it illegal to panhandle.
Yeah, it should be illegal. But on the other hand, I agree with the mayor. We cannot arrest everybody. I mean, the police are so overwhelmed now. This is probably one of the last things they need to deal with. I think by putting those, doing what the other cities have done to address this situation, it's two birds with one stone. You know, the outreach programs are getting the funds. The monies are not going to guys that are just looking for a quick buzz, collecting change. And it just kind of diffuses the situation, and it's it's been proven to work.
Okay.
I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel here. I think solutions, we just need to research them a little bit.
You said you presented the mayor with a letter.
A letter, and links to all this information I found.
Okay.
And I haven't heard back from him. I'm sure he's got his hands full with the city budget, all the cuts that are happening. And I understand that. I run a small business. I understand managing money. But you can only cut for so long before you're really starting to, before it's detrimental.
Yeah, and do you think this is one of those problems that's actually, if they invested some money into somehow, and
or you can get a collection going,
you could put a dent in it?
I think so.
Causes a loss of tax revenues?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know.
The family that did not return, and these are just the people that I'm aware of that have not returned because of this. You know, those are sales tax that we're missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty.
You got anyone else you know who's? What would you encourage folks to do?
Well, over at Sidebar, I know they've had a constant problem with people sitting on the patio being solicited, constant.
Really?
It's one of the reasons I don't go there anymore. Talk to Rob over at Ohio Coffee Company. You know, we get a lot of foot traffic here in the neighborhood. Primarily, the problem I think downtown is in the Oregon district. We get a lot of foot traffic in the neighborhood because of Eastway that's over on Wayne, where most of their social services, and they get their medication over. We're right in between Eastway and St. Vincent. So we get a lot of foot traffic between the shelter and the social services. I know on more than a few occasions, the residents have had people that come to their door, knocking on their door at all hours, asking for money, soliciting for money.
Yeah, I've had people when I lived on Wayne Avenue.
Yeah,
you know, knocking on the door out of nowhere. You know,
my whole situation is,
wanting to get someone they knew out of jail.
Right, exactly.
Like, why do you knock on someone's door you don't?
That's right.
No.
My whole thing is the longer you tolerate it, the more it has free reign. The more it has the ability to do whatever it wants. And I also think panhandling is a precursor to other crimes. We're seeing more muggings in the neighborhood, armed robberies. And I know that the crime goes through waves. You know, it peaks and it valleys, but I just hate to see this constantly be tolerated. You know, we look out the window here at the gym and we see customers coming in and they're constantly being panhandled, constantly. And we're back here in the neighborhood. You know, our foot traffic is nothing compared to what Fifth Street has to deal with. I think if you talk to any of the restaurant or bar owners, you'll hear the same thing, that they're constantly getting it.
You think
they're conditioned to it? You know, it's just part of living.
Do you think any other city in the Miami Valley would tolerate the concentration of social services? Any
other city?
Yeah.
No.
Do you think they should be? There should be something done countywide.
Absolutely.
To help.
It should be dispersed a bit.
Dispersed, just like what they've talked about. You know, one of the movements in public housing was like, people need the right to housing, but we don't have to clump everyone.
That's right.
Together.
That's right.
And that led to social, different, ills, bigger ills, and then a lot of times they were trying to cure.
I agree. The reason you don't hear much of this from the rest of the county is because the problem is centralized.
Yeah.
You know, if you put it out in the burbs a little bit, I think people get a little bit more vocal. I don't think that spreading the problem around is going to fix the issue. But it would make people more aware of it, that's for sure.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Plan on taking anything to city council or trying to do anything to the neighborhood association, business association?
None of the municipalities have any money to do anything right now, and I understand that. I think the next step would be to see if we can get a collection system going, monies to put these meters out there.
Okay.
Then we'd have to go through the process of getting the city to allow us to actually mount these things on the curb. I'm a small businessman. I'm pretty busy, kind of a one-man show, so things move slowly for me. But I really would like to see something done. So we can't just continue to ignore it. The cities that are really going to advance out of this recession are the ones that are progressive. I think this is a very progressive idea, a proven idea, and I think it's time. It's time for Dayton to deal with this. I mean, they kind of do it by moving the Greyhound station. Trotwood wasn't too happy about that. I think the same thing will happen if the county tries to disperse the social services around the county more instead of it being so centralized. I don't know, maybe that's a different topic, but I think it's just time to deal with this.
Okay.
I mean, especially if we're trying to revitalize downtown.
Thanks for your time to speak.